I'm Russ Casey, editor of Reptiles Magazine and ReptileChannel.com. We're here in Fountain Valley, California with Jay Brewer of Prehistoric Pets and the Reptile Zoo. Today we're going to talk about the reticulated python. I'm holding one here. Jay, are these all retics?
Well, they actually are. They come in a lot of different color phases because they were originally, back in the day when they were brought out of the wild, there was only a few morphs, but of course now we're crisscrossing the morphs and making all different colors. There's over, I'm pretty sure there's well over 150 different color morphs and patterns. So this guy here, I'll just real quick go through these couple in my hand, these three. This one right here is a titanium platinum. And this one right here is a golden child, tiger, sunfire actually, but it's going into shed. And then this one right here is a platinum citron, which means it's a platinum het titanium. It actually makes the other one. Now, you're holding there is a tiger reticulated python, and the original one was probably caught about 20 years ago. And it's actually a morph pattern of it's just a pattern. You can see how it's actually, instead of a normal retic, it actually has elongated lines. Very common. You'll find them in a lot of pet stores. They make fabulous pets, but you got to keep in mind they get large. They're not going to be a little tiny. He ain't going to live in a cage like this its whole life.
At this stage they can though, right?
It's an ideal cage for starting out a reticulated python. So now, speaking of size, there's a lot to talk about on size. Reticulated pythons actually come in dwarf, super dwarf, and then mainland. Mainland is general, and that's the ones that come from the larger land masses and that are connected. They come from all over Asia, and a mainland can get up to 30 feet long. Now, I've never personally seen a 30-foot one. Actually, I don't think it's ever been seen. I think 29 foot some inches is recorded, but in my lifetime there hasn't been any alive that size. Now I have actually own one here. Its name's Twinkie. It's 23 feet, which is still not my longest one, but she's a real heavy-bodied snake just by naturally being a heavy-bodied snake. So she's actually the largest one I've ever owned. She weighs about 350 pounds. Good news is that doesn't happen by accident. Usually you have to feed them everything they need. You got to have the right genetics to even get anywhere near that size. So it's a little bit intentional to get them that big by giving them something they probably wouldn't get in the wild. They don't get fed every day in the wild. So Twinkie gets a consistent diet throughout the whole year, where many of these snakes, when we breed them, some of the females will go off food for as much as 5-6 months and not eat one meal, which is totally normal.
So retics can get big, and correct, they can get very big, but there's smaller varieties.
Right. Now the super dwarf, for instance, is only maybe a 6-foot animal, and 6 to 8 foot max. And if you get a super dwarf cross, it's going to be more in the 10-foot range. But even then, if you want to keep them really small, all you got to do is feed them once a week, and they'll do fantastic. Now, when they're young like this, you want to feed them at least once a week, and you want to feed them a small prey item. Now, a big snake can go months without eating, but we don't really like to do it that way. So what we prefer to do is feed them a smaller meal once a week. That way they always have nutrition. What you want to feed them is about the size of the animal. So, for instance, this snake here would eat like a crew-cut mouse or maybe a small mouse. Where, a great big snake like Twinkie would eat like a frozen rabbit. And something about its size. Now, if you want to grow them faster, you can feed them food twice as big as that. Twice the girth of the biggest area of the snake. Now, a super dwarf, like I say, will commonly stay under 6 feet, and even a mainland, if you feed them once a week and you feed them meals small as the size of the animal, it'll actually stay at about the 12 to 14 foot range is a common size for a retic. So when you see that giant, remember, you're going to have to invest a lot of time, a lot of money, and buy the right snake to make it that big. So don't buy them if you want a little snake. You better stick to a super dwarf.
So for the smaller ones, this enclosure would be good for this guy.
Fabulous enclosure. What we have here is orchid bark. They'll actually do good on pine shavings. You don't want to use cedar. Cedar is poisonous to all snakes and lizards. That's why you use a cedar bed for a dog, because it kills the fleas and things like that. Well, we don't want to kill any snakes. You want a nice water bowl in the cold end, and that way you can come over here and get a drink, do what he wants, but you want to have a nice warm spot. Now, on your warm end, you want to keep about 90 degrees, 94 degrees, somewhere in there. But you want to make sure on a reticulated python, most people don't know, they actually like it cool. They like it in the mid 70s to high 70s and do great, but they have to have a nice hot spot. So what we like to do is use a underbelly heat for them. That way they're able to crawl underneath there, I don't really particularly like hides. Sometimes when they're brand new, give a little time, a hide will help. But honestly, retics, if you notice all the ones I'm holding, they're very tame. They're many years of captive propagation, and if you pull them out of the wild, the myth is not a myth anymore, because if you take them out of the wild, they're by nature a very aggressive snake to protect themselves in the wild. Where they live, you better be protective or you're going to get eaten by many kinds of birds of prey, and crocodiles, and water monitors, and all the other things that eat them. So they are aggressive if you take them out of the wild, but 95% of all retics that are in the U.S. anymore are captive, born, and bred. Some many generations, and are very, very tame.
Now you held up the heat mat, but there's a heat element in here too. So would you use that at night, or?
Actually, I leave both these on 24 hours a day. I prefer to be a red, blue, or green bulb. The idea is that, like I say, that you have a nice warm basking area at all times, so that when it has a meal in it, it can go over there and digest it. And as far as UV, you don't need any UV at all. They actually get their vitamins out of the rodents that they eat. They don't need any calcium, no supplements of any kind.
So the full spectrum lighting that you'd use with basking lizards and aquatic turtles and that, you don't need them for reticulated pythons?
If you want to use it just so that they are more appealing to you looking at them because they're well lit, it's like if you own a gemstone. You'd have a nice, beautiful lighting over it to make them show off all those beautiful colors. And retics have, boy, with over 200, with over 150 kinds of morphs, there's some beautiful ones.
And even the normal ones are so beautiful.
So you might want some UV light just for you.
What about water? Now, we got a water dish in here.
Correct.
You were talking about humidity is important.
Yeah, humidity is a tough thing because if you keep the cage too wet, it actually gets stagnant. So I'd rather you not worry so much about humidity and keep a nice clean cage with a nice bowl of water. Reticulated pythons don't usually shed in one piece because they have a thin skin. So you might find yourself need to soak them once in a while to get the extra skin off. But what you can do is when you see the snake come out of blue, after he comes clear, because what they do is they cloud to shed, and when that clouding becomes transparent again, you can actually mist the cage down a little bit and it'll help them shed. And having a few things in there for decoration won't hurt. You know, like a branch. Like I said, I probably would not have the hide because I don't want them to hide. I want them to feel comfortable with me. But sometimes it doesn't hurt in the beginning of any reptile to give them a hide, just to get accustomed to their new enclosure and all that.
So what people have previously said about retics in some instances is they get huge and they can be a little bit nasty sometimes, but with so much captive breeding, we got smaller varieties now, and the nastiness has been bred out of them to a huge degree.
Yeah, I mean, there's exception to every rule. It's like people.
Yeah. Present company accepted.
Yep, I personally, this is what got me in the business of I enjoy breeding them and making all the different morphs, and this is what I like to do.
All right, cool. That's the reticulated python. Thanks, Jay.
Take care, guys.